Imagine waking up to find that $200 billion worth of advanced AI chips critical to the future of global tech have been intercepted. Not by hackers, not by pirates, but by a sovereign superpower, China. That's right, China just hijacked a massive shipment of NVIDIA chips, and the US is absolutely furious. This isn't just a shipping mishap. It's a bold geopolitical move that signals something much bigger. The tech war isn't coming. It's already here, and it just exploded into open conflict. Before we dive into the full story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell icon so you never miss an update on global power plays, tech wars, and the future of the world economy. Now, let's break it down. This entire crisis is just the latest eruption in a much longer, slow-burning conflict. For years, the United States believed that by flexing its muscles, especially under the Trump administration, it could crush China's tech ambitions. Tariffs were slapped on, exports were blocked, and big promises were made that China's economy would break and Beijing would bow under pressure. But what actually happened? The exact opposite. Instead of crumbling, China adapted. Instead of retreating, it doubled down. And the first thing the US discovered was a brutal truth. It cannot survive the tech race without China. From rare earth metals to complex chip manufacturing processes, the US is deeply dependent on the very country it's trying to cripple. Let's talk about rare earth, those obscure elements that make everything from your smartphone to military fighter jets possible. China doesn't just produce them. It dominates the global refining capacity, controlling about 90% of the world's supply. The US, it barely covers 10% of its own needs. When Trump blocked chip sales to China, including the powerhouse NVIDIA H20s, China didn't yell. It didn't tweet. It simply stopped exporting those essential materials. And that silent retaliation hit like a freight train. Within weeks, the price of gallium and germanium key metals for chip making skyrocketed. US industries were paralyzed. Defense systems, EVs, clean energy infrastructure, everything slowed to a crawl. And by the second quarter of 2025, the economic damage? An estimated $3.5 billion and climbing. The chip war that was supposed to weaken China ended up wounding the US instead. That's when a quiet panic set in. By June 2025, behind closed doors in London, US officials were negotiating face-to-face with their Chinese counterparts. Gone were the bold sanctions and press conference threats. In their place, quiet deals. The US agreed to loosen restrictions on chip exports in exchange for the resumption of rare earth shipments. It was chips for minerals, a desperate compromise wrapped in diplomatic language, and just like that, the script flipped. NVIDIA, the crown jewel of American AI chip production, was suddenly allowed to reapply for export licenses. So was AMD. In mid-July, the US began processing approvals for the H20 chip to be sent to China. AMD quickly followed with requests to export its MI308 chip. All this despite earlier bans that were meant to prevent China's military from getting advanced AI hardware. These approvals signaled not just a policy shift, but a quiet admission of how deeply US tech firms depend on the Chinese market. Billions in potential revenue were hanging in the balance, and the pressure from Silicon Valley became impossible to ignore. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick tried to save face. He told the press these weren't the latest chips, just fourth-tier models. But that spin didn't fool anyone. The H20 still packs serious power, high bandwidth, CUDA-core support, and excellent AI processing capabilities. Enough to give China a serious edge in industrial and military tech, especially as it races to dominate next-generation AI and surveillance infrastructure. And the response from China? Instant. Tech giants like ByteDance and Tencent rushed in to place orders. They knew exactly what these chips could do. Analysts began whispering that the US hadn't just backed down, it had opened the floodgates. Billions in frozen revenue were now in motion. NVIDIA's stock surged. AMD saw nearly 9% growth in a matter of days. Investors cheered. But Washington looked nervous. Why? Because this wasn't just about revenue, it was about global leverage. Export licenses had now become political bargaining chips. And more importantly, the US had just taught China something vital. Sanctions can be reversed with pressure. For Beijing, this was a green light to push harder. Behind the scenes, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang wasn't celebrating. Reports say he was furious with Trump's earlier actions. During a meeting at Mar-a-Lago, he allegedly warned that the restrictions were a colossal mistake. "You didn't stop China," he said. "You just hurt American companies." And he was right. While American firms scrambled to recover, Chinese tech giants didn't just survive, they thrived. ByteDance had already stockpiled over 25,000 H20 chips before the ban even hit. That's nearly $16 billion in inventory. It wasn't panic buying, it was a strategy. While the US stumbled, China moved forward, fast. Huawei, in particular, is now in beast mode. Despite being blacklisted in 2019, it released the Mate 60 Pro in 2023 with 5G and a 7nm chip produced domestically. And in 2024, the Kirin 9000C arrived. No US components, no help from the West, just pure, homegrown tech power. The message was loud and clear: we don't need you anymore. And it didn't stop there. In 1 year, Chinese memory chip makers captured 5% of the global market from scratch. By 2026, that's expected to double. Local firms like Cambricon and ByteDance are now producing their own GPUs rivaling NVIDIA's H20s. And Huawei's Ascend 910C? It reportedly outperforms the H20 by 2.6 times in raw computing power. Let that sink in. All of this happened under the pressure of US sanctions. China took adversity and turned it into acceleration. In 2024 alone, Beijing poured over $47 billion into semiconductor research and development. This isn't recovery, it's revolution. Meanwhile, America's allies are starting to question their role in this drama. ASML, the Dutch company that leads the world in chip-making machinery, has been blocked from selling to China since 2019. And they're fed up. That restriction has cost them $1 billion a year. In 2025, ASML once again missed its sales targets, and leadership warned that if these bans continue, China will just build its own machines. And when they do, the Western market share is gone. Forever. The US now finds itself in a strategic trap. It's trying to stop Huawei by flooding the Chinese market with downgraded H20 chips that are just strong enough to sell, but supposedly weak enough to not pose a threat. Trump's AI advisor David Sachs calls it a subtle move, a way to hold onto the Chinese market while slowing Beijing down. But critics see it for what it is: a gamble. One that probably won't pay off, because every chip the US ships today could empower China tomorrow. The more China buys, the more it learns. The more it learns, the less it needs America. And soon, it might not need the West at all. And now, let's get back to that jaw-dropping headline: the intercepted shipment. According to sources close to Chinese state-backed logistics networks, a massive cargo container loaded with NVIDIA chips bound for a US-approved buyer in Southeast Asia was intercepted by customs authorities at a Chinese port. Officials claim the shipment violated updated export routing guidelines. But analysts suspect something else. This wasn't a mistake. It was a message, a bold one. China is now actively using its grip on trade routes and raw materials as leverage. Not just to retaliate, but to rewrite the rules of global tech. And when you're sitting on $200 billion worth of the world's most advanced AI chips, that kind of leverage can change everything. So what does all this mean for the United States? It means the old playbook is dead. Tariffs and bans don't work like they used to. The global tech race isn't about walls, it's about bridges. And right now, China is building them faster, cheaper, and stronger than anyone else. While Washington is stuck reacting, Beijing is already planning 5 steps ahead. If the US wants to lead in AI, semiconductors, and the digital economy of the future, it needs to rethink everything from supply chains and alliances to domestic production and diplomacy. Because one thing is clear: the era of dominance is over. The age of competition has begun. And this battle, it's only getting started. So stay tuned, because what happens next in the chip war will define the next decade of global power. and you can bet we'll be here to break it all down. Thanks for reading. If you found this video insightful, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss what's coming next. We'll see you in the next one.